the list of issues that we sent you help make things right. Thank you for your time.
Is there anyone else online that would like to speak? Ms. Goff, are you there?
There's a lady here.
Good morning, my name is, yes, good morning, my name is Laura Garnett. I'm here before you to make a plea, myth bust, and fact check the standards of Rosemont at Oak Valley. As of June 7th, I have lived here in Rosemont at Oak Valley for 16 years. Over the past years, our community has faced many challenges with previous members of management. This year, 2022, it has been estimated that over 52% of people will be living in multi-generational homes, meaning grandparents, their children, and their children's children will all be living under the same roof. This is extremely important for someone like myself because I live in a home with my children and their children. Affordable communities like Rosemont at Oak Valley have accommodated families like mine because they are so affordable. This is not to say that I have not had my share of issues in the community. Have had 4 previous management companies responsible for the property. In turn, some of them were irresponsible when it came to maintenance requests and the fulfillment of their duties. They've lost very important rental applications and recertifications that were required for our community to be in compliance with state policy. There have been even security issues that were ill investigated due to pure negligence of those parties that I spoke of before. Needless to say, parts of the Riverside and Old Thorpe communities are all relentlessly being gentrified on a monthly basis. And soon there will be no affordable properties for families like mine. We are all here to speak and fight for our homes. Home is where the heart is, and mine is strongly rooted in Rosemont. I even have a small garden that I tend to, and I share my garden and my herbs and vegetables with my neighbors that I know that live close to me. I'm here with you as a witness to some of the issues we have encountered in this property. When I moved in my apartment, it was not made ready. I had to clean my apartment myself. After numerous maintenance requests were not handled, I learned to fix my own sinks and toilets using parts from the local Home Depot. At some point, I became depressed about whether or not this was a place for my family to call home. Eventually, more management companies came in and made promises they could not keep. They came and went as fast and hard as the winter storm that damaged many of our units. Today, after many trials and tribulations, I'm happy to say that Jeremy Bristol and his management team are doing an amazing job of getting our units in compliance with the state policies, completing maintenance requests in a more timely manner, as well as providing customer service at a professional and high level. This has eased my heartache with having broken appliances from the past, not having mailboxes for about 6 months due to vandalism, and also having my children's cars broken into by vagrants. Team Bristol. You give me time to finish. Okay, thank you. They're amazing. They have put a lot of my fear of worries and uncertainty to rest. They have taken the time to get to know the people that matter, and those are the people at Rosemont. They have a large work ahead of them, but I'm sure with positive efforts, they will not go unnoticed nor in vain. They are a community that will get us back into compliance and make it safer with their on-site security team and upgrade the units that desperately need it for the future residents who will come to Rosemont seeking refuge for the impending doom of the new millennium economic power keg we are all facing. Just like it happened to us, it could very well happen to many of you in this room today. You could be streaming, watching your favorite show on TV, and the next minute you'll find out that a corporation came in and bought your property, and then you could be in the same situation as we are, being told that you would have to leave 30 to 60 days due to something else. So thank you for your time, and I appreciate the fact that Jeremy and his management team are working steadfast for us to keep Rosemont around for many years to come.
Thank you very much.
Ms. Goff, are you there? Would you like to speak to the board?
Yes, I'm here. Good morning to everyone. I'm Keonda Goff. I'm from Rosemont as well. Unfortunately, I don't even know what to say at this point because I'm tired of talking. I've said all that I can say, and I'm listening to everyone say all that they can say, plus more. We've been saying the same thing for years, but this has been going on for over a year, and we're in the same position. I know everybody want to give kudos to the new people, but I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing anything. Because number one, me and my family, the Goffs, we're still displaced. We don't even know where we're going to be come the 19th. Nobody has even made sure we had somewhere to go from this point on, because we know the apartment ain't gonna be ready. That thing is full of mold. The mold hits you before you even get to the door. And this is the second apartment. We've reached out to the commissioners to come in and see what's going on. And we can't even get the president to stay on a phone call with you 2 minutes because he don't want to be bothered. But these are the people that's making decisions on our behalf. They don't even have a clue as to what's going on. And this is where I am with it. So I can't give kudos to nobody yet, as of now. Kudos for what? We got code closing the book on nightmares, children, hair falling out, the mold. People can't even take their medicine because of the mold. We don't even have nowhere to go. And this is 1 year coming. The money has been poured into this property and there is nothing to show for it. Absolutely nothing to show for it. The property is in the same condition it was in before y'all even put the money out. Where do we go from here? Where do we go from here? Because I don't see anything that anybody's doing. And the people that are representing, that are sitting, representing us shouldn't even be there. My frustrations on this is through the roof. Because they're the level of incompetence that I feel like I'm surrounded by. When you know that these are people living in these type of situations in America. Like a fourth world country. I wouldn't even give it a third world country because guess what? They don't even have walls in there. They don't even have toilets, bathtubs. This is how people are living in America. In such a beautiful, progressive city as Austin. And then where's the money? Where's the money that went into fixing this property? Where's that?
Ms. Goff, your time is running out. It's over 3 minutes.
And then, and now the time is running out. Because nobody don't want to hear it. Nobody don't want to talk. But thank you. That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much. Anyone else?
Is there anyone else online that would like to speak to the board?
Ms. Wilkins is signed up.
Who?
Ms.
Ms.
Wilkins.
Wilkins.
And I've asked her to. Ms. Wilkins, can you hear me? I've asked her to unmute. Ms. Wilkins, are you there? Can you hear me? Mr. Sheldon, would you like to address the board?
Hi, this is Stephanie Wilkins. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Hi, so I don't have much. I've been living here at Rosemont for about 8 years now. We've gone through different management. There's been issues with maintenance requests for quite some time. We had about 9 or 10 walls knocked down back in April due to winter storm damage, but there were issues with mold prior to the winter storm that we put in multiple requests for repairs and nothing got completed. My walls were torn down April of last year, and the repairs just started last week. There's guys here still finishing up repairs as we speak. I'm in my office. I'm taking off work for this. I've had to work through all the noise. I work from home. And it's just been real hectic this past year, over a year, working in this state. And it's even worse now because I have my kids home for the summer and people in and out. The work was supposedly completed on Friday, but there's still stuff that needs to be done. I had to send an email to get the workers back out here to complete things. It's just been a nightmare. And that's all I have for now.
Very much. The, person to come back on. Anyone else? We'll see someone else just walk in. You want to say something at this time now? Sign up, speak. Is there anyone else online?
Is there anyone else that would like to address the board at this time?
We'll move to item 3, the consent agenda. I had an opportunity to read the minutes from April 5th, from May 5th, I'm sorry.
I read them and I wanted to make a comment because I was absent. I just like my absence to be recorded as excused. I had talked to staff in advance and told them that my husband was going for a medical procedure and I needed to be available.
That's, I don't know if you can excuse those amounts.
There are allowed absences a certain number, so we can certainly reflect that in the
Yeah.
And while you mentioned that, I noticed someone called and said I didn't speak to him on the phone. I was in the hospital when they called. I had an emergency that I had to go to the hospital. And I guess I'm not supposed to go to the hospital.
You're excused.
But anyway, that's neither here nor there, but I'm gonna take care of it first. Because
as amended.
As amended, as amended.
Second,
All those in favor?
aye.
Okay. Any opposed? Hearing none. Action item number 4, the resolution for SHFC 2022-03, approve the contract with the city of Austin to sell strategic housing finance corporation interest in the SHFC profit in general in the sale. I'm not going to read you for you.
That's fine, sir. We'll have Robert and then provide overview.
Before we begin, Mr. Chair, the meeting is supposed to be ended 11:45.
No,
It is
sir.
already 11:15. Just so that we know how much time we have to.
It's posted for.
There should be no end date.
We can go over it.
Okay, what is the will of the body in terms of duration? That's last time.
I don't think, I don't have.
So I made plans for 12:30.
Do I?
Okay.
It was on board.
So how much time do you think we will be
But it's
allocated to
posted
the
for
action
10:45.
items and the other items, and how much time do we need for the regular session? Okay.
We'll work through the items on the agenda first, and then we'll deal with the executive session when we get there. But we will take whatever time we need, and let those that can stay, those that can't.
Oh, right. Are we going into executive session?
We can't go into, let's do the items on the agenda first. We've been going
Yeah, we're
into
following.
executive session, we have to ask everybody to leave. Okay?
No, I'm saying, are we going?
There's a plan, yes. to do so.
Okay. Okay.
So if I made it, Boardville does ask for a time frame, and so I'm going to say arbitrary, but actually it's not, it's subject to having an end at that time. It's just, it typically asks for a duration, and we put it an hour and a half. So that's why it shows as such.
Well, it would be useful if we kind of start the meeting to provide a preview of what we're doing, especially if we need to reserve time for executive session. There was an issue at the previous meeting, or if somebody has to.
Well, you had a copy of the agenda. You saw it, it was given to you beforehand, okay? So when you get that, and it's all on board, and you would put some stuff out there yourself.
No, I'm aware of the agenda. I'm saying that in the past, you have managed the meeting in such a way that you limit questions.
Based on the time, based on the time, and of course, we had 2 people at the last meeting that had to be out of there at 1 o'clock. Okay?
Right.
And I stated that earlier.
And that's why we need to, I'm asking if today, we have
Do
any,
you have to leave to go anywhere? Can you
sure,
stay for
what
the
I'm
rest of
asking
the-
today is if you have any time constraints so that we take into consideration.
I don't think that no one else is, but you want Ms. Rose said that you had to leave at 1. You said you had to be out here by 1. Also, on Thursday. So we've got until that time, okay? Thank you. And we move to Mr. Hunting.
Yes, sir. I provided the background, and I think the board is familiar with the background of that we received an offer originally from City of Austin for $1.4 million. We went to the real estate committee, discussed 4 or 5 possible options on how to dispose of the property, if should we consider doing that. I think the real estate committee came back and said, gosh, we would have a letter, we'd have an interest in considering their offer if it came back at $2.6 million. We communicated that to the City of Austin, and on May the 6th, they sent us a letter of interest in $2.6 million. Now, this particular resolution is authorizing either Patrick or myself that once the contract comes in, and I have just heard that it will be coming in the next couple of days, that we have the authority to go ahead and execute the contract. And so that's the recommendation, and the resolution is to give us authorization to execute the contract for $2.6 million and move forward with the closing of that transaction.
Questions?
I knew if we go forward with the recommendation, and I want to just say that the real estate committee did meet. We did ask staff to push back and go with that new number, and thank you for doing a good job.
Thank you.
Is there a second?
So, well, when this discussion happened, second,
Second.
I did not.
Is there a second? Been moved and second. By Ms. Rover and Mr. Bingham. Approve the motion given. Mr. Howard, Mr. Howard, signed the resolution and contract. For the county. All those in favor?
Discussion, sir.
Discussion.
Discussion.
Any discussion?
Yes. Why is 2.6 a good number? The staff, why is 2.6 the appropriate number for the request?
Excuse me, so why is that the appropriate number?
Yes, why not 3? Why not 5?
Based upon the other options that were available in the analysis that we did, the max that we thought we could get under the other options was 2,006,000, I believe 94. And so based upon that, the real estate committee had suggested that they were pleased that the city of Austin wanted to purchase the property, that their intention is to extend the affordability, and they liked the fact that the city of Austin would be the buyer of the property, and that if they could raise their offer to 2,006,000, that we would strongly consider it. Is it worth more than that, or are there other options? There are, given all the other options that we discussed and the difficulty in getting to that point, we recommended that 2,006,000 was a reasonable offer for the general partnership interest. And the difficulty is valuing a general partnership interest versus just outright sell of the property. So
I may too, I think the other thought was that the proposal that the city offered to create PSH housing was within the mission of the organization, and so that it felt like there was inherently benefits outside of the value of what may be sold on the open market, I should say. So that was part of the discussion that the real estate committee and staff had when we were contemplating what the amount was.
In addition, the real estate committee met and discussed this, and we appointed them and asked them to serve.
No, sir, you appointed, sir, you, not the body, just to be clear.
I also want to share that we have an appraisal that supports the number that we're asking.
The board understood on.
Ms. Melendez, Mr. Bingham, right, but the, at the May meeting, I requested a methodology for the appraisal, which is mentioned in the Valencian Associates memo that you provided. And that has not been provided. I also requested it again for this. And then, is that methodology available for the 8.1 for the 70 units?
would you repeat yourself? I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time. I'm not close enough to
Yes,
it.
for the May 5th meeting, which happened subsequent to your April 28th counter offer to the city, I requested the provision of the methodology, which is mentioned in the appraisal created by Kalani. That was not provided, and we did not get a chance to discuss it at that meeting. For this meeting, I again requested to see if the methodology for the appraisal was available. It was not provided. It was not provided in the answers that I asked for and received this morning. So all that we have that suggests that that is the price is literally 2 pages. There's no methodology.
So we did respond to your request with regard to the methodology. and it is based upon standard practice of appraisal practices. I have a copy of the appraisal report, which outlines that. I did indicate to you that it was a restricted appraised value that looked at the income approach. And that income approach is primarily used to consider the value. The reason why that was performed was because, as I indicated within the write-up, in these transactions, you have to look at not only what the value is of the property, but you have capital accounts that need to be satisfied by the limited partner. And that's why we engaged ConResNet to do that analysis and to make sure what the net might be if we did a subsequent hypothetical sale. So that's how they arrived at the dollar amount that they did, that's based upon the splits and representing, addressing the capital accounts. You would receive approximately, I think it's 2.694, which is how we arrived at the 2.6 and said, hey, if we could get to 2.6, that's about what we would get if we sold it. Now, granted, there was a lot of work that would need to be done in order to get there. And obviously we would need to pay the developer's fee, et cetera. But that was the basis under which we did that. Be happy to give you a copy of the appraisal. It details the scope of work. It's a standard that is recognized by lenders, courts, et cetera, in determining value of the property. I think it's well laid out and well documented.
That is a document that I requested back with the May meeting. I would like to have it after the vote, just so that I'm informed and subsequent of this vote. But I think that the challenge is that everything, the forensic analysis is useful in figuring out what the GP is valued at. The plug into that is the velocity number, which is the 8.1 plus what the land value might be under affordability on lot.
Right.
That in turn impacts the top line value and thus what we might get after ConResNet. I'm not talking about the ConResNet numbers. I'm talking about the top line number, which is 70 units plus all this big acre of land, which would be entitled to affordable lots in the city. Do we have any other comparables? Do we have any track record? And everything comes back to a June 21 appraisal for which I only received 2 pages. You can see how
Okay.
appropriately exercising the fiduciary duty to protect the reserves. It makes me curious about how solid is that number.
Okay, and so, I'm sorry, you provided us with a long list of questions, and the last question was the methodology. The methodology, I misunderstood your question in that you wanted a copy of the appraisal. Certainly what we discussed in the real estate committee is I said, we don't have to accept this offer. We can go out and market the property. And really, quite frankly, the market is going to dictate what you receive. The appraisal is an estimate of value. And so, again, if you were asking for the maximum top dollar and you thought that we had a lot of time and opportunity and were willing to pay the developer's fee in the interim, however, there were a number of other issues that needed to be addressed by December 2022, which is to pay the developer's fee, which is outlined within the, So we'd be happy to discuss it in further detail. Oh, absolutely.
Well, we're voting to
So, Mr. President, I think that we do have the ability to delay the vote. We want to have more discussion.
No, I just want to finish the discussion and then I'll make a comment, because I will support this, but I just want to make a few points. I'm very uncomfortable about how this transaction is happening. I don't want to find the 3 things. One is a counteroffer was provided to the city on the basis of a sub-forum recommendation, not that of the court of direction. It's a dangerous precedent to make a sub-forum provide guidance on issues that are so material without the full body putting on it, in my view, that is concerning. We should not be using committees to circumvent the board. I'm not saying that that's what is happening, but given the paucity of deliberation around such a meaningful transaction, it is of concern. Number two, moving into the future, if we have more of these transactions, it is important to be able to have as much documentation available for our decision making. Misunderstandings or no, and kind of how the meeting, the moderator or no, and that's why several of my resolutions address that today. It is concerning that at least my experience has been, I have requested a document that you say does exist, it would have alleviated my concerns. And number three, I think in terms of transactions, having an individual point of data, which is the case in this situation, to me seems very brittle, even if it is accepted practice. It does not feel responsible to me as an individual. I'm ultimately going to support this on a difference to the real estate committee, to your expertise, Mr. Amin, and to the fact that the partner at the other end of this is SHFC. So ultimately, it is very much in the line. But this way that this is developed is very unpleasant taste in how the transaction is developed, because it is of significant importance. If we were truly going to be optimized for improving our fiscal position through this transaction, every little bit counts, particularly because we want to pay the developers fee. So arguments about 200K this way or 200K that way or million this way or that way might be important given our financial position. I hope that you hear what I'm saying about how this has happened, because, well, I will support it. I'm doing it with reservations and frankly, a bit of disappointment about how my timely and good faith questions around the transaction have been handled with the process. Thank you.
I want to respond because I serve on national boards. I run 3 corporations, and committees are valuable, and they help focus on a lot of the issues that are critical. They stay focused on the agenda, and then the recommendations are valid. And I felt very strongly that we had ample time to review the potential sale. We had time to review the offer and to make recommendations. We had adequate information. We know what goes into an appraisal. For those of us that are in real estate, that's pretty standard information. So I really believe that work by committee is adequate. And I really believe that the board of directors needs to respect the work of your committees. If you serve on a committee, we will certainly respect the work that you're doing.
And as a final matter of fact, you all did report to the board. You made a report to the board. So, am I correct there, Mr. Howard?
The committee did report out the recommendations and the discussion, yes.
So,
But I want to just bring up the issue of going forward. Yes, if a board member requests more documentation, more information, please provide it. But yes, if you have a committee that is working hard on your behalf, on behalf of the board, on behalf of the assets that we own, you have to respect and value the work that is being brought forward.
The work was not obvious from our previous meeting. We received a 2-sentence update saying that the process should continue. And it was not clear at that point that the committee had followed. In the questions that I submitted, the counter proposal to the city was made on April 28th. We met on May 5th. It had the discussion after the board report. The board had determined, as I might have had I received documentation on a timely basis, that I was concerned about 2.6 or 2.4 or what have you. We would have provided material communication to a counterparty without knowledge of the board's, the majority of the board, not in arbitrarily designated subform. So the problem here is not respecting the work. It is how the board, the subcommittee work, which is significant material in this issue, was incorporated into what has now become a full board action item. And so that timing issue, as well as how the information was conveyed, is the core issue. Because of the argument being made is that we will designate all real estate transaction decision making to the real estate committee, then we're gonna have a much broader problem of how we proceed. Because the committee work in terms of getting information, asking questions, preparing consensus action is important, but it's consensus action also in terms of support. And
Well, we have a motion in a second, and I call the question.
Well, the question is, all those in favor,
Aye.
any opposed? Thank you very much. Resolution HFC 2022-04. We presented that, Mr. Allen.
Yes, Robert will also be providing us some summary of the item.
So in regard to this resolution, previously, as I said in the background, I have requested from the board authorization to spend up to $3 million of our own money towards repairs at Rosemont, repairs and operating expenses, et cetera. We have been going back and forth with how much we might receive from insurance proceeds, how much we would receive from additional loan proceeds, and we're now up to about $2.3 million. However, I anticipate that the Build Back contractors, specifically Austin High Tech, is due a substantial amount of money based upon their completed contract, and I anticipate that they're going to be asking for the balance. We typically have done, if they have a $300,000 contract, they ask that $100,000 be put up front. Now that the work is complete, there's some $900,000 that I'm going to need to pay them when that's complete. In addition, and I'll go through the numbers, we have a number of lawsuits. They're at this point, they're around $100,000 each that are going to need to be addressed. And so I anticipate needing that money as well as future repairs for Build Back and contracts. So I'm asking by this resolution to go from $3 million to $4.5 million. And believe me, I'm not going to spend any more money than I have to, but I want to be able to have the authority to address these contracts and these bills as they come up. And so that is my recommendation, and that's what the resolution is.
My understanding is that you're making that request and that funds that have been provided are in the form of a loan. Can you tell me what the rate and terms are on that?
Can I tell you what? I'm sorry.
The rate and terms are of the loan.
Okay, and that is in the spreadsheet that is
Note payable?
notes payable,
Yes, sir.
and it's approximately, hold on just a second. It's over on the right-hand side.
Can you find it?
Yes, total bonds outstanding, 30 million at 5%. Maturity is August 2024. The 3 million
Is it in the?
2000 is at 6%. It matures 2024. Maturity value is 4,010,000. And then the 2 million, which is the additional funds that we most recently borrowed at 5% maturity 2024. No, it's in my write-up in the spreadsheet.
So what's the, I'm sorry, I didn't hear what the rate was.
So there are various rates.
We're lending to ourselves. We're lending from
Well,
finance corporation to the property.
well, we are from that standpoint. However, we're borrowing funds from the bondholder. We use the
Right.
funds from that we receive from the bondholder in order to advance it. And so
Right.
these are the rates. that
And
are-
that's fine. I
Yeah.
think it's a great idea to lend to, from one entity to the other. But what's the interest rate and for how long?
And so the interest rate is fixed rates. As I indicated, it's 5% until maturity. 6% on the 3 million, and 5% on the 2 million.
Okay, got it.
So my request is to go ahead and increase that amount, and unrelated to the amount that we borrowed. This is actually cash that we have in the transaction, and we are asking to increase that amount. Hopefully, we will receive additional insurance proceeds that we can then use to fund additional costs and keep that amount as low as possible.
Any other questions or comments? Anyone?
I move that we approve the resolution as presented.
Is there a second? Question? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed. Item 5 is Rosemont update. Mr. Howard.
Yes, sir. We're gonna start with regional property manager Jeremy Bristol.
Good morning. My name is Jeremy Bristol. I'm sure you guys are aware of me. I wanted to speak about the buildback memo. So Rosemont is continuing to implement the goals set forth of the buildback plan for occupied apartments sustained during Winter Storm Uri. Provided, as you can tell, it's not up there. Provided with the memo, which shows a table breakdown. First starting with the total unit count of 280 of Rosemont, and then of course vacancy of 123 as of 31st. And of course, we start off with 101 live in place. 8 were done between January 1st to January 31st. February 1st to February 28th, 10 were completed. And then March 1st to March 31st, 8 were completed. And then April 1st to April 30th, 10 were completed. And then from May 1st to May 31st, 30 were completed. Altogether, 66 units were completed as of the 31st. We have 35 awaiting. And then, of course, I put a note there, the quality controls that I spoke about in the last meeting last month were completed. So they're in the 30 as well. And, we're continuing as much as we can to foster and encourage a two-way dialogue and communication with the tenants, with the residents. I've made myself available to all residents, no matter what. I'm not there every day. Of course, I'm a regional, I manage 6 other properties, but we're going to continue to investigate the situations that come up and make sure that we have better situations for our residents. So we'll continue that and make sure that we collaborate with the tenant organization. I already spoke with the tenant organization recently, and so we have some dates coming up to meet to speak about more situations that I can resolve personally in June. I'm ready to take any questions as needed.
I just have a quick comment based on what I heard from one of the, I think it was Stephanie, but for tenants who are working at home, they have kids in summer now, is there any plan to do anything with the kids and families who are there during the construction zone? Like maybe they could go somewhere. I know it's not your job, but it's maybe something that staff can figure out. There's Patsy has partnerships, community partnerships with like the YMCA and Woody Grove, et cetera. Is there a way to broker that relationship?
Certainly, we can explore some opportunities through the HFC Foundation. We do have, funds allocated for supportive services. Rainbow is the organization that works with the staff, and they do some programming. I don't know if we can speak to any of that, but we certainly can obviously ensure, meet with them and discuss the plans that they have and look at some options for obviously leisure and recreation particularly in light of the work that's going on. So.
Yeah, I spoke with Rainbow. So that's already kind of been a discussion item. And so I have a meeting with them next week as well about doing some, not only that, but also resident events as well to foster some more relationship with the residents.
Jeremy, I had a couple of questions based on some of the resident comments I heard. Don't know why my rent is increasing. What are we communicating to the tenants about their rent increases?
So we're affordable housing, as everyone's aware. So we're not increasing rents, the rent fold. I kept asking, because I heard about it yesterday, the situation. I kept asking everyone, well, who's rent is increasing? And usually the way it goes is whenever there's a new lease needs to be renewed, it goes to compliance, and then
Right.
compliance will let me know, and then I approve it. So I haven't approved anything.
So are you having maybe group meetings where you're kind of validating or invalidating some of that information that's given you?
Are you saying with the residents or with the
Yeah,
office staff?
you with the residents.
So I've asked the multiple residents to meet with me. So whenever I have the opportunity, I do invalidate that situation or validate whatever situation it is. But we need to schedule a meeting. I've been asking, it's an organization. I know they were having a committee to meet with me. So we already have some dates in place to meet next week to validate some things and invalidate other things as well.
So two more items. I also heard we don't even have current leases. Can you share what that's like?
So we're doing an audit, and so some leases are in Blue Moon, which is an online system that we use to generate our TAA leases. So some of them need to be printed out, and so I've already directed my staff to do that. And so if there's some situations in which where some of my staff didn't have login issues, and so we've kind of fixed that situation. But we will get everyone their lease if they do ask for it. And I've been asking multiple times. I've put it through Knox, which is our online notification system. If they would just email me directly, I'm happy to resolve any situation that comes up. With regards to leases, regards to renewals, regards to any situation, I'm happy to personally take care of it.
Yeah, it just concerns me because we're in the leasing business.
Of course.
And we certainly want our residents to have leases. So
Agreed.
do we know how many residents do not have leases?
I have not gotten any notification in my email that
Let us know.
have asked me, but I will find out.
The other item I heard was that there was some elderly residents that are still waiting for remediation. How are we prioritizing elderly that are ill and or families with children? How are we prioritizing in terms of when they move up for their repairs to return?
Yeah, so like fair housing, we treat everyone equally, and so we're trying to hit everyone in phases. And so a lot of people that should have been hit in other months, I'm investigating, what the issue was. But the numbers are correct in which, because I walked in specifically, but there's one or two that were missed by construction. I'm investigating why those were missed.
But are we giving priority to families that might have a higher need?
Correct.
A
And
more urgent need?
now, when you say higher need, that is correct. Now, also another higher need as well for our priority is when someone has a half contract, which is housing voucher, and and for whatever reason it fails because walls are missing, we do put those on priority as well because they're losing their housing. We don't want them to lose their housing. So a lot of the priorities were there as well in regards to not only children and elderly, but those were the priorities too, where housing was going to cut them off basically from some residents. And then we also have co-compliance as well that we want to take care of before entering any hearings. And so we've had a lot of priorities and we meet all the priorities. The next batch for June and July are going to hit more people as well.
So I looked at your report and we're making progress.
We are making progress. It's a mess.
We're making progress.
Okay.
There's 35 remaining that need to be completed. Is that correct?
That is correct. And then
So what's the timeline for that?
so the timeline by July 1st, we're hoping to have another 20 done. And then of course we'll have 15 left. And then it was brought to my attention, what I want to do is like to be proactive. So we're going to do a total community-wide, if you will, walkthrough of only the occupiers to make sure that not only the quality control is there, but also make sure everyone is, being heard. And I'm personally conducting that myself. I'm not going to delegate it. I'm going to personally take care of myself.
So then based on what I hear, the build back plan, the goal is to finish
By the
all the repairs
by the end of July or August, the latest, correct?
by mid-August.
That is correct. Yes, ma'am.
That concludes my question.
I will say, just to supplement that, I've been pushing hard, really have. And so I know right now, we could do a lot better for my staff and Infinite Construction, Austin High Tech. You know, everyone, of course, is working the hardest, but there's some situations which were brought to my attention that I'll investigate further, and we will do better for this month and next month.
Jeremy, the lady with the picture of the mold, did you get a copy of that?
I have it right here, sir.
Okay.
I do. I'm
Figure out
investigating
what's
that.
going on with that.
Yes, sir.
And then also, there was another issue, what was it, 9?
I have over,
913.
I have 913. I have 3002 Pleasant Valley, Unit A. I have both. So I'll be investigating after this meeting.
And there was that elderly lady, Emma.
Yes, I have that information as well. I wrote it down. Yes.
And thank you for your comments also as well. So I think we're addressing this call.
That's correct.
And that's on the schedule and on time. and et cetera.
I'll be in touch with her as well today.
Okay.
If you might, I mean, maybe we should explain the process, what the process, and let me just add a little bit. So, as you know, we have the Goffs in temporary housing, and they're still remaining in temporary housing. We identified a 3-bedroom unit, ADA accessible on the first floor that was completely gutted with the intention of actually building that back with all the assurances in place, quality control and the like. So I had directed Jeremy to meet with the Goffs regularly to ensure that things are on time, that they're aware of the situation, the schedule and the like. And we have every intention of having that done at the time, during the time frame that was allocated, which is June the 19th. So it is on schedule. And as I understand, Jeremy has been meeting and sharing the progress to date with the family. And if more meetings are needed, certainly, then we need to make sure we do that so they can be well aware of where things are, and if there's issues that come up, that can be communicated.
I'll be in touch with you as well.
The process also, am I correct?
Say that one more time.
Document. So you're taking pictures and documenting.
That is correct. I use Site Audit Pro, and so Site Audit Pro, I take pictures of the before and of course the progress, and then I'm taking pictures of the after as well. Yes, sir.
How many signed and completion unit forms do you have?
We have 20. I directed the staff to work through the list, but personally, I'm just going to actually do it myself this weekend and speak with more of the residents and make sure that we have signed off the scope of works.
It would be great to report that number on this table next time.
Yes, sir.
if you can,
Definitely will.
So we can keep track of both versions.
Yes, sir. Definitely will.
And our brother just see from this day forward, as opposed to going all the way back to January, we kind of got the gist of what happened.
Of course.
Okay, so
Yes, sir.
just give us on a month basis.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Any other comments? Questions? Hearing none. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other updates, Mr.? So what's that, bill back schedule, we finished all of that, Mr.? We're ready for the board report.
Yes, we have just a little bit more information to share about Rosemont.
Okay, so I'm going to move through this rather quickly. So the estimated cost to date, I do not want to adjust it down. I still think that's probably realistic. I will tell you that we are continuing to fund bill back, as I indicated earlier. That's part of our request to ask for additional money. We did receive a small amount from insurance recently. I wish I could tell you it was more. I think the biggest issue that we have ongoing that concerns me is the number of vacant units that are not leased. And as a result of that, our operating deficit continues to increase, and that's something that we need to fund. And I know that Jeremy is working in tandem, not only to get it repaired, but to get the units that are available leased. And I'm constantly saying, can you move any faster? And he's doing everything he can. However, that's a troubling number, but we're doing everything we can to get the units that are available leased so we can start to reduce that operating deficit. So.
So what is, how much did you get from them?
It was like 196,000. So it was like 32,000 a building. And we just yesterday talked to them about it, and we could probably go into a lot of detail about where we are. I don't know if we have time to do that right now, but you know, be happy to go into a lot more detail. We are working to try to get resolved and get money flowing faster. And that would result in our adjuster meeting more often with their adjuster so that they can process the claim faster. And that's what we're working on.
And who are you meeting with over doing that?
Actually, we met with of course, the CEO wasn't available yesterday, but it's the head director of claims. And then his assistant was on the phone yesterday. But what we typically do we try on a monthly basis to have a Zoom call with them as well. And then, of course, we correspond with our adjuster and work on the backside to try to get that accomplished. So top down, bottom up to get that done.
Any other questions?
I asked about the time schedule for the repairs. What's our time schedule for the lease ups of the vacant units?
Yeah, so currently we're released to 60%. And so my team, I gave them a quota that I would like to have at least 15 or more pre-leased or leased out per month as we transfer people out as well and leased at the same time. So that's our quota right now. So the team is working
15 a month?
15 a month, 15 or more a month, correct. I don't want nothing less from my outside team. And so, go ahead.
So my next question is, when are we going to get into the black?
You're probably, given the number of units, and I'm assuming it's about 120 that are vacant, and at 15 to 20 a month. So you're talking approximately 6 months to full lease up, probably 4 months, 5 months for in the black. Because you have to be at least 85% occupancy to be in the black.
So that would be from now, so perhaps this fall, October, November?
Yes, and if we can do it sooner.
No, and
No, I understand.
Yeah.
And at this point, we're going to hire a 4th leasing agent. We call resident coordinators to push that as well. I really want a rock star to help us not only with the resident front, with renewals, but also with leasing as well.
Great.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Howard, do you have any other comments on the?
No, I was putting it back.
Can you report on
Oh,
that?
sure. So we met with the county, I think it was 2 weeks ago, about the payment for relocation. And there was no action taken. The staff was directed to go back and figure out exactly how they can honor the commitment to make the $1.6 million payment to us. And we believe we have a resolution to do that, and I will be presenting next Tuesday to the Commissioners Court. But from all accounts, we should be able to get 1.6 million as was committed, and potentially a little bit more. We've spent at least 1.810 million on the project. So out of pocket will be about 250,000 or so, and I think when it does settles as it relates to relocation expenses. But I am presenting on next Tuesday the Commissioners Court.
Anything else? Any other questions? Okay. Item 6 is board and committee reports. Real estate committee, do you have any additional?
We do not.
Okay. We had HR and government committee report that I was in the hospital the day before, and I didn't get released until that morning, so we canceled that meeting. And we were do a joint committee meeting with the special HR and government with the housing authority too. We had Ms. Brown and she was committed, but we couldn't get everybody else. So anyway, no action there. Is there anything on the quality of life committee?
Yes, and Cleo can be a backup singer, but I will start. So at our quality of life committee meeting, we talked about the lease addendum, also called the tenant bill of rights. We discussed that, well, we got an analysis from staff and from an attorney and staff, and what we heard was very clarifying to me in that a lot of the issues that were brought up in the tenant bill of rights are not, they're not being approved by lenders, and there's it affects their bottom line essentially. But the committee was pretty steadfast in saying, there has to be some kind of creative ways to at least get part of the way there. So there was the big sticking point is relocation in the bill of rights. But there are other things like eviction protections that I think, me personally, I would really like to advocate that we do something around that. So the Travis County Commissioners Court is very clear that we shall adopt it, that it's almost a directive, it is a directive, it's pretty strong language. Given that there's this sticking point, we would like to go back to the Commissioners Court and say, what are some creative ways that you would find acceptable that get at the goals that the Commissioners Court has set forth for us. Because we want a more tenant-informed process, because that's one of the commitments this body has made, given that we have tenants represented on the board, et cetera, we want to find some ways to collaborate with tenant groups, stakeholders, to adopt some sort of similar document or to get more of the way there, to get to the spirit of it.
So we basically heard three things.
Sorry, if I may, Cynthia Bass is on the line, and we asked her just to listen in as well. I know if we could, I know there's other comments, but I just want to make you aware.
I just want to clarify the three sticking points that they were going back to the outline for this.
Cynthia, you wanted to speak?
So there's the relocation provisions in the document are the most concerning to the lenders and partners. That there are other things on there too, but that was the main sticking point. I would like to, as the body, to commit to a lot of the protections. I will say that the lease that we have is done by the Texas Apartment Association. It's that standard lease. I think we can go a bit further because they're very heavy landlord advocacy group. I think we can offer some more protections, but we would have to get with a community stakeholders group to adopt, to come to an agreement on what we're including.
Yeah, that sounds good. But anyway, I think the others you pointed out, the biggest sticker is relocation, and that's something. Let's hear from Ms. Bass. Cynthia, can you speak up?
I just want to make a space for other community members who are there who might
Okay.
add things that I missed.
I think that was an excellent summary.
Yeah, I think the last point, just reporting back to the Commissioner's Court before we back on. But another point was going back to Commissioner's Court with those first 2 points, right? And technically being involved well with statuses. founded to get clarity from the Commissioner's Court on another directive based on what we found.
Cynthia, are you there?
I am here. I will tell you that I am having trouble hearing everyone, but I am happy to address whatever you might like me to address.
So Cynthia, I just invited you so the board can be aware of who you are and the fact that the staff had enlisted you per the board's direction sometime back in the fall to help us sort of maneuver through the process and understand what the implications of the tenant bill of rights are, and that just an understanding that we will continue to be working on this collectively as a body, with the idea of also engaging stakeholder groups to be able to form and shape what essentially we've been, what we've come up with or what challenges we're facing, or understand at least the priorities. But I just want you all to know that Cynthia had been communicating with the Commissioner's Court, at least the County Attorney's Office, about this process and the status. And I just want to make sure you're all aware of who she was and what she's doing, and if she wanted to provide any context, that would be fine. But I essentially wanted to make sure we made you aware of the fact that she had been working on stuff.
One last point. I had to jump off of the committee meeting a few minutes before my colleagues did, but I think we did talk about moving forward in partnership agreements, seeing how the Bill of Rights not going into further partnerships without with partners who would be vehemently against the Bill of Rights. I don't know where we left it, but that was a point of discussion that I wanted to bring up.
It was notified, but yeah, it was just another comment.
And Cynthia was aware of that communication?
Yes.
Yes.
And he was on the call, yes.
Yes. And we have, I think you all have most of the background. But just very briefly, just so everyone is on the same page, when we did receive the resolution from the County Commission, one of the things that it applied to was all future leases, not all future properties. And as you know, SHFC has approximately 25 investors and lenders across the various properties in the portfolio where it has an ownership interest, with numerous contracts that govern those relationships. So our first task legally was to look at what is the organization's contractual obligation to these parties. Can it even agree to a lease addendum without approval from these parties? So that was the first question. But to work on obtaining that consent, they wanted to know what the addendum changes as compared to what is currently in use, which is the standard TAA lease with the standard TAA lease addendum for affordable housing that is supposed to include and does include all of the programmatic requirements from the various funding sources that you all utilize. And as mentioned, the investors and lenders have underwriting obligations. They want to know about any changes to operational matters that may increase the economic risk or change the economic viability. So we looked at that addendum and compared it to what's currently in the lease, what's currently in the addendum that is utilized across the industry, what is currently required under federal, state, and local law. We spoke to property management companies about operational issues and impact. And the truth is, many of the things in that addendum are already required. They're already in our contracts. We're already doing them. But there are a few things. I heard you mention the relocation. That is one of the things that is not currently in the contracts that can have an economic impact. So when we were getting some concern from the investors and lenders, one thing that we wanted to do was say, we want to have a residence bill of rights. We want to be very clear that we have a commitment to the rights and protections of the residents. So we have, in addition to analyzing the lease addendum, we have also prepared a draft residence bill of rights of all of the things that we feel comfortably can be committed to within our contractual obligations to the investors and lenders who are involved in these properties. So that's where we are. We have some analysis of the lease addendum. We have a draft residence bill of rights. And the county and county attorney are awaiting a response from us as to when we can meet with them and talk these things through and get to some sort of resolution on the issue.
So are you gonna take that lead, are you and Patrick, getting with the county attorney to work with this topic?
So if I may, so it's Cynthia suggested there was a draft, and that actually preceded all the work of the Quality of Life Committee. So
Right.
understand that what we did prior to us having these discussions. So obviously now we're talking about revisiting the entire process in terms of looking at the Bill of Rights in its pure form with stakeholders and concerns, and ideally we can figure out how we move forward, but we need to go through that process first, is what was shared. So we will figure out a forum to do that soon, I guess, with the committee in the appropriate fashion to make sure we can get all the engagement we need to come up with a plan to go forward. In the interim, we would, make some contact with the county attorney's office to ensure that they understand where we are and what we're doing. So we do need to do that, and we haven't done that just yet.
Okay, the other thing is, I think everything that they talked about, with the exception of the relocation, is probably the biggest sticker in there. And so, just as we talked about earlier in the housing authority meeting, maybe something in the nature of funding the foundation or something with, because we're doing PIPLs or something of that nature to help in that category as we bring things on to do that. So that may be an option.
Sure.
To look at, but this, but it would have to be done over time, in a sense, and I just don't want to obligate or tie down developers or even funds, which could be streamers on the interest and financing and all that kind of stuff. So is that something that you all would consider in the committee? Maybe something let's go back to the answer they were throwing out this morning. The point made. I think the committee, both Christine and I heard most of that, so I think we have a good understanding. Anything else?
Just would be possible. I know, so you have briefings with directly with the commissioners court to just provide an update directly from Black Wayne to us about that process besides the Secretary's office. Or not brief, but just a level, like what's the discussion in this public, what discussion is, just so they're hearing it.
Yeah, so typically we haven't had one to date, right? It's topic specific, like, hey, we want our relocation funds, that sort of thing. And we work with a liaison, which is HHS executive. So essentially what I would need to do is work through her, probably through the chief of staff, to figure out what the appropriate forum would be to have the discussion outside of just the county attorneys, as far as that process. And I can do that, and we will do that. So that, there's some communication.
Yeah, and what I'm getting at is more just making sure that they know that we heard them.
Sure.
And that it's the process.
Gotcha.
Anything else? Is that, that can make committee report. Okay, executive vice president's report.
Sure, we'll briefly summarize existing and current potential partnership.
So with regard to strategic, as far as potential partnerships, the only partnerships that we have that are potential are those that I've mentioned that we did inducement resolutions and went through the bond review board to seek allocation. To this date, nobody received an allocation, and nor do I anticipate that we're going to have one come up and reach the point where we're ready to move forward with the transaction. So quite frankly, we have no business with strategic at this point. And quite frankly, because we have this issue with the tenant, Bill of Rights, I don't anticipate that we are going to get the additional business. Our business is going to come from public facilities courts, and that's what we're seeing right now, which isn't affected by that tenant Bill of Rights.
I just want to understand, because in yours, in the package, we talked about pending transactions. So these are in the works, we're going to close these partnerships. And you're saying going forward.
Well, the ones that are pending are referenced as those that we did inducement resolutions to go to the bond review board. Then based upon whatever bingo ball they actually got, the likelihood of whether or not they are going to get reached. And I'm saying it's not very good based upon, and that's why I have gone back with those that are pending on strategic and said, would you like to consider a public facilities court transaction? And so in some cases we are being successful, like Blue Ridge, and that we're moving forward with a PFC transaction. So even though they are pending, I don't think they're moving forward.
Well, what's throwing me off is we have that column close, anticipated close. So that's what I'm hearing you say, and then this column is kind of not matching.
And I think what we tried to do on that particular report is try to report to the board, assuming that, we did an inducement resolution, then at some point in time we'd reach an MOU, and that sometime it would close. And we just tried to put some dates, but, I probably need to update that and then just put not anticipated close.
So on this list, because I was reading it as, oh, we've got a lot in the pipeline, we're going to close. But hold on this list, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 projects. How many do you think, or which ones do you think we can move forward with?
Okay, so Casey Bridge is one of them that we talked about, that the recommendation on PSC structure, we said put on hold. That did not get a very good number, and so I don't think that's the Montopolis deal, Manish Burma, they're still waiting for their number to get hit. And so they really don't anticipate something's going to happen. Gaffin Flats is, of course, Elmington, which they're hopeful that maybe in August they'll get reached. I'm not sure that will happen. It's anybody's guess. Blue Ridge is the one that on a PFC deal that we considered today. And Interport Apartments is one that's been sitting out there that they hope, again, that they'll be able to get carry forward, but sometime in August. So again, I probably need to kind of clean that up so that in reading it, you realize that it's, although it's possible, it's not probable that it's going to close until some other type of action that happens.
So that would be good if you rework this report.
Sure.
Because of the 7 transactions, it sounds like be more on the screens ago. Well, but I mean, we'll wait for that report to see what. Okay. That helps me.
That's it.
Super.
Good afternoon. What's included is the financials for, as of April 30th. The revenues for strategic is behind. It is, the revenues is dependent on cash flow from the properties, from the partnerships. And also it's triggered by, I know on some of the partnerships, on one of them, there was like a $1 million projection, and I think it's waiting for an 8609 tax credit certification. And once they get it, they will release that $1 million in the developer fee. And I know on one of the partnerships, the distribution was done after the audit. So the audit hasn't concluded. So, so that is partly some of the reasons why it's behind. Other than that, as Patrick mentioned, we have spent $1.8 million in the relocation expenses, and we are waiting to get reimbursed for 1.2. We have been reimbursed for $500,000, and we are waiting to get reimbursed for 1.2 million. Also, what is included is the financials for for Rosemont. This is done by Capstone, and you'll see the revenues are half of where it should be, because it's 50% vacant. So, and the other thing I wanted to mention, we are still at the accounts payable is still at $7 million that we owe to vendors.
Is that accounts payable or notes payable?
Accounts payable. That's on page page 45.
Anything else?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. So on the cash flow projected for 2022, I'm looking at our projection that we would have by December, because that's your fiscal year end, 6.2 million. But there's a lot of properties above that number that are not performing. And that's surprising me, because the report that you provided with all the properties show that they're performing real well. We're at 90-some%. 91C. Yeah, 91 average. So what is happening with these properties? Because that's quite a lot of the shortfall. Menchaca Commons, are those on construction and they're not getting completed in time?
That'd be a key question.
Manchac Commons is one that is things still going up to the lease up.
I'm getting there. I'm getting there.
Even with construction on it was recently completed several months ago, but it's still going through that process of lease up. So their occupancy number is there. And I will go back through those financials and see what is outstanding on that, if they have collection issues or something like that. We did see a drop in our occupancy levels, primarily due to one, Rosemont, and two, we had Colorado Creek and Creekview Apartments both dropped down to 85% occupancy. And as I noted in our report, that was due to eviction activity that they were pursuing once the moratorium had lifted. And I communicated with the developer and the management company on that. I think the next number you see, at least from the leasing point amount, the number of units leased, it will be back above 90% in their next report. But as far as the rest of the properties, they're performing about where they normally do. And Mr. Almira, the director, remember you had a question that you submitted to us.
Yes, sir.
With regard to
Anticipating other eviction waves.
right. And I did provide a response to you, but I wanted to provide it to the board as a whole. I spoke with, again, the developer on those properties, and verbatim, the properties dropped to 80% range due to eviction and skips. Due to moratoriums and rent relief, many residents refused to pay rent or seek rental assistance from sources provided to them. Many refused to move until eviction was done and a writ of possession was obtained. The properties already have leasing back in the 90% occupancy range. The properties are out several $100,000 in rent due to this conduct and long lead times with evictions in Travis County. So that is what those properties have endured recently, or what they have been doing recently with the lifted moratorium. And you also, I believe, had a question with regard of should we anticipate more of this activity? And my response to you is it's going to depend on a property by property basis. And the reason that that's my response to you is because one of the things that you generally want to do in these circumstances, as soon as you see a tenant having a problem, you want to immediately put them on some type of payment plan or get them some type of rental assistance or whatever is available or within your control. I think that most of these properties have done that, and the reports that I see have, they show that people are on payback. They have a number of residents on payback plans or repayment plans. I just think that these two particular properties, that might not have been the case because they were going through lease up this year, and they both had a couple of property managers replaced. So I think they were probably just trying to manage the lease ups that they could get and deal with the evictions as soon as they were legally able to do so. It wouldn't surprise me if we saw maybe a 1% drop or 2% drop in some of these few of the other properties, but I don't think it's going to be anywhere as severe as this.
Right, and just, I think that's an answer to Mr. point as you talk to each other about your forecast. I remember when I got on here a few months ago, average occupancy was at 94, even though we were carrying Rosemont.
Right.
And obviously in those months, we've seen it not go past that, although I don't think it's unhealthy. But as you make the projections, maybe assuming a point down, a point and a half down, might be relevant.
And it might be, that might be not an average occupancy necessarily, a full point or two, but it might be on a per property basis. A property may be 1%, have a 1% drop if they're processing evictions now. So, but I think that number is probably going to be back up next month as a result of the new tenants that Forest Creek, or not Forest Creek, but Creekview and Colorado Creek will be putting back in residents.
But I wanted to still look at that cash flow because there's some properties that are not on the list, and that's where I need to get to the disconnect.
Yes, ma'am.
And because when I add it up real roughly, it comes out to, we're at 2.6 million short. So on the cash flow, if we could look at that and scroll down where we see the $6 million anticipated. Yeah. And do you see then right above that, all the other properties too, if you move it to the left so we can see the property names and scroll down. So there's properties that are not on the list, like Decker Lofts and Jaeger, and, you know, I don't see those on your list, so, but the,
Those are.
Go to the next page.
okay, go to the next page.
And so those are under construction.
That's what
So,
I needed
yes.
to know, and
Yeah.
that's why I asked, are they getting finished timely,
Those
or
are still-
there
those are still in the
delays? or-
process.
Okay,
Once I got to see the names, it was. it started-
yeah, no, I
Okay.
needed, I don't know that, you know the names, I don't. So,
Right.
Okay, got it. So where do you think we're gonna be at year end? Are we gonna meet those numbers?
You know, I did cash flow projections, so I could probably answer that. The majority of the big numbers represent those properties like Colorado Creek and Creekview that have converted to permanent.
Mhm.
However, until the 8609s are actually applied for or done, the release of the money is not going to be there. And the problem is you make a reasonable projection of, oh, that ought to happen in a
Right.
couple of months. There's always been some delay.
Mhm.
Colorado Creek has been going on for 4+ years
Mhm.
through the development and has had nothing but one problem after another. So all of the big money coming in is as a result of what we'll receive when they convert. And it's just very difficult to.
And I needed to understand that
Yeah.
because they're not on the list. And so are they operating or? what
Yeah,
you're
no,
saying,
they're
they haven't
operating, but you know, the equity provider who provides
can't
that last
Get our
little bit
developer
of
fee out of it.
developer fee,
Right.
I'm not giving it to you until I get my
Right.
8609.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Okay, that helps me.
yes.
And I have a report, I think it's probably one I shared with the previous board. But I have a report that has a list of all of those properties and their status, as whether they're
Oh,
under
good.
construction and I'll be happy to provide that
Okay.
to the board.
Wonderful. Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other words? If not, then we'll move to item number 8. And the first point, discussion, we're going to go into executive session. Yes, sir.
Yes, I realize that. I mean, you would have to call up, get in, you have to move to go into executive session. Well, you have to, you need to entertain a motion. Let's take the time. Thank you for putting on that.
Excuse me?
Oh, okay.
We came out of executive session, we lost the quorum, so we just need to adjourn the meeting. But
So we'll say
at
what time
least
we
we
get
can
back
get a
on.
motion and we'll get it, we'll second it and then we'll close it
The
out.
motion will fail because there's not a quorum, but you
Yeah,
can make
so
a motion.
a point of order, Mr. Chair, we have lost our quorum.
Okay, so we're just gonna end the meeting, okay?
Okay.
Okay.
Thank
no motion. Thank you.